Hi there. Hello there. Hi everyone, thank you so much. This is clearly a popular topic and I love it. I have actually done a few of these sessions over the 25-year plus career. And it is always an important one because every advisor is on different journeys. The path to building a really sustainable, great long-term assets under management approach with advisory is a topic that comes up a lot. Just as you think about making that shift, and I could not be with better representation of that. For introduction purposes, my name is Michelle Page. I'm a Senior Vice President on the Advisor Engagement team, reporting up through Aaron Ford. I'm actually a field-facing leader working with a team of relationship managers, and we support and advocate for our advisors every day. And then I will let Bill and Nash Bailey introduce themselves.
Bill Bailey, and anybody know that song? Nobody's old enough to know, Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey, right? My name is Hunter William Bailey, go by Bill if you want to do that. Started in 1980 training, and then 81 as a salesperson. I hated it, and then years later I'll talk a little bit about how we transferred to manage money. I'm a medium producer, barely in the top 10%, nothing fantastic overnight. It was a long 40 years. It's not easy. Maybe other people can make money quick, but we just have a process that hopefully will help you do the same.
So I'm Nash Bailey. You can call me Nash. I'm also a financial advisor with Wealth Strategies and kind of our portfolio manager, so I'm taking over the management there. And I've been in the business since I was 18, essentially. Been doing a lot of admin stuff and training since I was a kid, and I've been around it. I've been in the office really since I was 10 years old, so I've got a lot of adjacent experience. But I also do some educating for our clients and for potential clients and prospects. That's really kind of what I'm really all about.
And as you can tell, this is a really fantastic father and son team. And so tied to this as well, which is a lot of questions we received, is just the succession planning. And we're going to share a little bit about that towards the tail end as well. There's always just really great questions on planning ahead and considering a child as a successor. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But the primary purpose of the session today is to talk about this really defined process that Bill has really built, and I'm going to have him share a little bit more about that shortly. But as I talked to Bill, the genesis of even putting this breakout together was listening to his story. And I think his story is going to resonate so much with everyone because he really talked about, in a really humbling way, the lack of confidence he had years ago in making that shift from transactional to advisory, how really difficult that was. But what stuck out to me the most was just how he kind of questioned his value. And, am I able to make that shift? Am I able to put, a price on my value? And if I do, I better show up in a way where it really resonates and I'm giving the best to my end clients. And so that led to him obviously authoring a book. The book is in some chairs. What we're going to do is talk about ways that you can get a hold of these resources. But first, I would love for him to just start by sharing that story going way back when, but sort of what triggered you, to kind of where you were in your career journey, how you were, sort of at that place where you started to even just construct this process that you have today.
Okay. First of all, like half of you, I suffer from general anxiety disorder. So you have a lack of confidence, you get nervous, I'm nervous now. It takes a while to get that confidence back up. My story started in the management side in 2008. I'd started business in 1981, obviously, but I didn't really like it. And at that point, the stock market, most everybody here is not old enough to remember, but we had a big crash in 2008, right? Market was down 65%, but after March of 2009, it started to stabilize. So, okay, I had balanced portfolios, all the money's in C shares, I'm doing pretty good, we're not down as much, we're bringing in new money. Then I stay home on a Friday and say, I'm going to take a day off. This has been very scary and stressful for everybody, right? Then I read an article about how FINRA, SEC, and the RA firms are all getting together, colluding together to wipe out C shares. They're going to eliminate C shares. And if they do that, and in my anxiety brain, I project things faster than what they're really going to do. I'm convinced that by the end of the year, they're going to put me out of business. Oh my gosh, there goes 80% of my cash flow. What am I going to do? So I tell a friend of mine, I'm stressed out, I'm scared, I don't think I'll be able to afford to go to Starbucks, right? And he laughs and says, you can go to Starbucks, you just can't buy anything, right? Okay, so that scared the life out of me that they were going to eliminate C shares, and they talked about it, Bernie Madoff's going to jail, and all these other terrible things. So then I thought, okay, if I can't beat them, I'll join them. So I started creating a little brokerage account for the individual funds that I wanted to do. I think I did brokerage before with C-shares or whatever. So then at this point, I was able to do the Vanguards of the world, Fidelity, and compete with other people, but I still didn't have the confidence that I knew what I was doing. I knew behind the scenes I was pretty good, like most of you. We all know how to do financial planning and investing for the most part, but how does the client see this? They only see, you met with me and did a financial plan, here's the portfolio, now I'm going to pay you a fee every month? What's that for? I don't really get it. So went to an advisor training program. The speakers on the stage, they're big-time producers, but in this program, they all came down to the audience, sat with us, and said, how can I help you? They didn't say, use my program, I'm better than you, or this is a secret meeting, you can't be in. They got down to my level and said, what can I do for you? That blew my mind, and I went home and started increasing my confidence. That was like 14 years ago. So my production's gone up about 3 times. I don't know if that's a lot. I know some people bragging doing that in a year, and I feel about this big when I sit in the audience and listen to how great they are. But there's always some reason, and I'm just an average person. In our town, Sacramento, California, most people work for the government. So my average client's 350, 400,000. So I have a lot of little clients, a handful of bigger clients. I'm not some genius that makes a lot of money overnight, but I've got to meet the client, sit down and say, you're not going to just buy these C-shares where you can't see the fee. You're going to do this portfolio that I'm going to manage, but by the way, it's going to cost you 1% a year. And I'm the one freaking out. They're okay with it, but I don't have the confidence. One time I tell the lady, excuse me, I'm going to use the restroom. I go in the room, I'm having an anxiety attack doing push-ups and freaking out about how I'm going to tell this person that their $1 million investment is going to cost them 10 grand a year. What am I going to do to make that worthwhile? Because I already gave the financial plan away, I did the portfolio, now what the hell do I do? So I went back and started working on a process, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. It's in the book that we just had a few books here. I couldn't carry this many in the airport. But we did this, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But you have to self-promote. And a lot of the stories that we hear, it's great stories. I love to hear what other people do. I'm also an introvert, and I'm terrible with math, and I have dyslexia. So it's hard to get ahead in this business with those types of things, right? Plus, we could all talk about our childhoods and all that kind of stuff, right? Carried out of a building at 5 that's on fire and all these other things. So when I wanted to put all that together and get confidence, another thing that I did is I hired a local radio station for $500 a month, nobody listens to, that I would talk on the radio. As I do now, I'm talking fast when I get nervous, right? So I talked on the radio really fast, laughed about the recordings, but gained my confidence to work in the office. But it still wasn't enough. I needed something that would get me through. So I worked on a worksheet. I've got all these things in this, and then this grew to the book. But the first part of it, we talk about the financial planning process, which we'll talk about, where we scale it down and make it as simple as possible. We don't charge for financial plans. Hopefully in the future, Nash will. I just don't want to get that deep in the woods, and our clients aren't really that big enough, so we do a variety of financial planning topics that we can talk about. And then the investment stuff will educate the clients either when we sit down with them or at a workshop. We give them the book, and the thing is, I would encourage everybody to write this book, right? And what I'd like to give you is the opportunity to download it on the website, change the title, get rid of my name, put your name on it, do whatever you want. Make some changes. If they're better, send them to me so I can do the same. But consider this book as our book. It's not necessarily better than what you're doing, but if you don't have a process, it's a process. Change whatever you need to do. I'm not saying it's the best book in the world, but our students in our classes and our clients read it, and they like it because when I say we're going to do this, 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 it legitimizes what we're doing because it's in the book. We already talked about the financial diagnostics or the portfolio construction of what to look for. And an educated client is a good client. The more educated, the better. When we teach classes, and Nash teaches 12 classes, the more educated the students are. At first you're worried that we're going to lose them. They're going to go home and do this themselves. They come back and say, I don't want to do all this stuff. The last part of the book is the follow-up on the administrative side and the financial estate planning and the investment monitoring. We have things for if somebody wants to do it themselves, what they have to do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannual, and annual. And so, Ms. Klein, if you have an adult son that wants to do this, here's what they have to do. They need to follow the process, and if they're not, you need to hire an advisor. Oh, By the way, does your advisor follow a process like this? And if he or she's not following it, are they really doing their job? And we have a list of things that they shouldn't be doing. So it educates the client that if they have an advisor, what to expect. But if they don't, and they don't want to do it themselves, obviously we're hoping that this reverse psychology, they come back to us.
So I'd love for you to, so thank you. You're doing awesome. I would also say that the process, so there's a lot of things that come through, question-wise on how do I start that process? And obviously everything that you were going through was the catalyst for writing this, like building the process and creating the tools is behind this book, which again, we'll show the website in a moment as well. But talk through like what was the first step. So as you're building it and as you're thinking through like this is what I need, let's dive a little bit deeper into the actual process itself that is repeatable and sustainable and is obviously led to your double-digit growth. And then also some of those resources that became the greatest, help for you during that.
Okay. I'll get you through to the portfolio and then we get into the investments and the portfolio itself, if I get some help from Nash. We do a financial diagnostic list in the beginning in the process. We break everything into threes, and so the first part is let's get the financial planning part out of the way. The investments don't mean anything if your estate plan and your insurance and your taxes are all messed up, right? Some of you are very good at charging for a really cool financial plan, so this is the part that you would do. Our clients, most of them are already retired. They've already done a lot of it, so we'll do a checklist and review their income, their insurances, their taxes, their estate planning. And we'll review it with them after we get a full data sheet written out, but I don't want to bore them with a big, thick financial plan. If we had wealthier clients and they have, their CEOs and all these things, absolutely, bring in the CPAs, the attorneys, everybody else. But these people, we can catch them on what we call the diagnostics of each of these areas. And then when we're done with doing the diagnostics and reviewing their overall situation, then we'll leave them with a punch list, kind of like a contractor. Here's a list of things you need to do. And then we show them a sample of a portfolio and we send them on their way if they're a prospect. I'm not going to bother you. You go back and look and see if you got value from us. We've taken some of our time and invested in your future. We haven't charged yet. You could charge them. And we want you to feel a little guilty, right? The reciprocity thing, the emotional reciprocity. These guys and gals are into what I'm doing. They didn't even charge me. Maybe some of you would argue that's not wise, but we've done that. And then when we get into going through the full checklist, the bottom part is reviewing the existing funds that they have. We all know that there's old legacy funds with high fees or bad performance. And then how do you get out without paying a lot of capital gains in non-qualified accounts? So we go through all those, the funds themselves, and point out some difficulties that we have with those funds. And then their portfolio, whether it's balanced properly, and what are the parameters of the expenses and the risk and all that. Then here's a sample portfolio, send them home. They usually come back sooner or later, and if they don't, you have that post-punch list, that's all in the book, that you could then send them a letter saying, here's the list, did you get any of these things done? So you have an excuse to send them an email or check back. And usually down the road, they'll come back in with their tail between their legs saying, well, I didn't get this done, I need a little more motivation. And they may come back and want to work with us as clients at this point. And like I say, that's the financial planning part, and the other follow-up part of all the administrative stuff. We list everything in there that, let's say you're going to do a rollover. Guess what? Here's the whole process that you, the investor, or you, your adult son or daughter, has to do, or your advisor has to do, and here's why they have to do it. And they have to make sure you're not a criminal and all these other things. We go into a full-on list of all the administrative process that it takes. So it's kind of like bringing your client into the assembly line, and they're not just seeing you sit down and review these things. They have to look and see all your staff's effort. I want to get credit for everything. So the financial planning and the post follow-up, and then we have the portfolio construction. You mind talking about that?
Yeah, so we do all of our management in-house, so we use advisor-driven models or we use custom portfolios built for specific clients. So we like to divulge that process. So a lot of that really just comes down to all the stuff that you probably are very familiar with, like utilizing these softwares to get a good judge on risk and what sort of risk tolerances, standard deviations, and all that kind of stuff that you're going to have for that client. But essentially, it's really just we're looking at it at a way to where we can point out the specific risks of their existing holdings or teaching them how they can generate a new portfolio that puts them in the right place. Because essentially what I want to do is I want to give them all the tools so that they can go and create their portfolio and do that themselves, not have to pay the 1%. Because I get a lot of students that are talking about, well, why is this 1% worth it if I can just buy an S&P 500 fund and outperform you anyway? And while they're missing the point, they have some sort of point where if they don't need to pay that fee, there's no need to. So if I can give them that power to where they trust me after giving them all of those tools, they now also know all the tools that I'm going to utilize for their benefit moving forward. So that's kind of what we're trying to do with that, and putting that process in front of them and showing them every little detail, every little thing from beta to duration risk and all these sorts of things that they're aware of, so that they know all the work that I'm doing behind the scenes. Even if they don't see me for a few months or several months, they know what I'm doing behind the scenes.
So I think that's incredible. So it's essentially, I mean, if we think about this process, it's educating the end investor first on the process in a way that then has them circling back to Nash and Bill, looking for that help, because they actually start to realize through really defined education that they can't do it on their own. They think they can, but then they realize that they can't. And for the record, I've been there before myself and thought I could do it, and then immediately went back to my planner and said, I can't. And so I think that's a really great segue around the classes you teach, Nash. And so, you know, this is a really structured program. The one thing I would also say, and we apologize, is the internet here has been a little bit slow inside the convention center. So our hope was to have Nash do a website demo, but that was not going to work out. So I do want to make sure, because even on your phone, you can certainly log into their website. It's right there at the bottom, it's hunterwilliambailey.com. It'll help you because as they're speaking to some of the resources, you'll be able to actually identify, and as Nash talks a little bit more about the classes themselves, what's amazing is that they have replays of the classes right on their website. So you can actually watch Nash in action teach some of these. But I would love for you, Nash, to just talk about how the construct of that program came to be and what that looks like, and just any detail that you can.
Sure. So this class that she's referencing is something that we teach for seniors at the local state college. So they have this little thing where all the seniors can come in and do all these different community-driven classes. So we are one of the classes that we provide between him and us, is we try and teach them how to do the financial planning process essentially from A to Z. Now, I haven't been doing it since the beginning. He was actually running it for a decade before me. A lot of our client base has actually come from there. We've seen a lot of people see all the information that goes into what they're receiving, and just like you mentioned, they don't want to do it, and so they come to you. So while he was running it and I was growing up, he was putting me through a lot of training, and I was going through a lot of academic stuff. So he has a lot of this real world, many decades of experience, and I went through a lot of the academic processes. I got my charter financial consultant, which has been really helpful, and essentially I just took everything that he was doing, all the stuff that he was presenting, and organized it in that sort of academic way, in a way that can be taught very easily, and introducing some of the new stuff that I brought that we have developed over time. But really, it is 12 weeks, starting from the first week, talking about all the little financial planning things, the insurance planning, estate planning, and income planning, and all this sort of stuff, getting them on board with the process and seeing all this that can happen. And over those several weeks, they learn how to check in all of their stuff, make sure that their estate planning is in order, because you'd be surprised how many of them, I'm sure you know, but they just don't have the simple stuff done. So even just those little checks, where they can sit and they can hear the information, and they just hear these little things that they might not have thought of, because one, they weren't willing to pay for the advisor, or two, they don't have a communicative advisor that they talk with a lot. So it can it really is a good opportunity to show people who don't have an advisor the value, and people who have maybe not as good of an advisor as you, why your value is higher and why your fee is more worthwhile. But again, we're just going all the way through that process and going from A to Z, showing how we build our portfolios, showing how we maintain our portfolios, showing the different things that we look out for when we're looking at their situations and looking at their insurance coverages and their estate planning, all this other stuff. We're just showing them all the tools that we use, completely showing our hand, so that they have basically the training that we would want to give somebody that would work for us, so that they can be their own advisor. And most of the time, they don't want to do that. They want to have they want to go back to their advisor and have these important conversations, or they want to come back to us, which is really great.
That's awesome. And I definitely know that one of the cool things We will actually do questions right at the end. So
I was waiting, he was taking.
oh, he was ready to tell. He was catching the moment. I was like, his question. We are going to open it up to Q&A though towards the end. So we would love to entertain questions from you all as well. When Nash was talking about the class though as well, just a reminder as you go to the website. So one of the humbling things that Bill has said before is that, hey, read the book, tell me what could be refined or what you would do better. Same thing with the tools and resources on the website. So as you think about this class that Nash teaches, the goal would be that you all can leverage those resources and go out into your own communities and teach these classes. I think that through the years, obviously, Nash, you picked up the torch so well and have taught these. Talk a little bit about like the audience size and sort of like some of the return on investment that you've seen from doing those.
So the audience size usually starts out maybe 25 to 30 people, and a good chunk of them stick through maybe the first couple weeks, and then they start to drop off. Some people get tired, some people just they have other stuff to do. A lot of them travel, but my whole book has come from this class, and so everything that I touch, everything that I manage, and a significant portion of what he manages as well has come from this class because we just get so much trust. And one thing that I will just state over and over again is I have such a good relationship with these people because they know exactly what it is that I'm trying to do for them. They understand why I'm doing what I do. They don't question decisions very often, and if they do, we have a 2-minute conversation and they're on board because they understand the reasoning because they were already taught it. They were taught the job that I'm doing for them. So then when we have conversations about what I'm going to do in their portfolio or what I'm suggesting for their financial plan, it's very quick to get them on board. They're very agreeable. And that's just kind of a great thing. And like she was mentioning with the website, one thing that's also great is we post all of our classes up on the website. We record them and post them so that clients that miss the classes can go watch them again. And I just got an email earlier this morning that was thanking me for that and saying, even though I couldn't make it to the last couple of classes, I've been watching the last few and I'm really glad for everything that you're doing. So it's a lot of validation, whether it's for people who have not become clients and they just enjoy the education, or for people that have come and now have such good relationships, such trusting relationships, that whatever I'm deciding to do for them is not even really a question. It's just part of the game.
The other thing that's good about with Nash involved or anybody, we encourage people to manage your own portfolios. I'm sorry, but it's easier for us because then I feel like I've got a job. Now, if I had too many people coming in the door, I'd hire outside managers. That's not a problem. But I want the client to see that by name, I can talk about every single fund. I know everything about the fund. And if it's down, this is why we're holding it. And this is why we're maintaining. Or I know the client better. I can custom make the portfolio. And now you see SEC coming down on people. It's going to be tough when you just harvest it, you send it out and you're not involved at all. Or at least if you do have managers manage it, stay in close proximity of them and know what you're talking about. Because the client's watching your body language. Sometimes I'll talk way too fast in front of them, but they just giggle and they think, oh, that's cute. This guy's obsessed with this. I want him managing my money, right? It's like if you go to a mechanic and they're all excited to do it, they probably put in more time and they might do a better job. So we want to let the clients know everything in the process, but at the same time, and when they come to the class, a lot of it goes over their heads. A lot of you are a lot smarter than us. You know things that go right over my head, but if I watch your body language, your shoulders, and see how you move, I'm going to determine whether or not I trust you at that point.
And that's the piece that I don't think can be said enough, is that the word trust was said repeatedly here. And I love the comment about the email this morning, because that was one of the first, we did a couple prep calls for this session. I went to the website and I watched some of his classes, and he does a great job. I think there is something to be said so much for the body language and for how you're establishing these relationships and the energy and the amount that you put into it, because you have passion around the process and it works.
I learned body language in the north wing of the main jail. I used to be a guard. I was a reserve deputy sheriff for 37 years, and part of my pay while I was learning to be a financial planner, because they wouldn't hire you right off the bat, you had to sell stuff. I had to work in the county jail to make money. As a reserve, you had to work for free, risk your life chasing bad guys, but if you want to be paid, you got to work in the jail, right? So then I worked with some big bad trustees, and I learned how to deal with it, watch how people move. But the bottom line is it's It's about our ethics and whether or not they can trust you. And sometimes you don't do an investment, like I'm sure everybody here would say, look, I'd love to invest your money, but you need to pay off the mortgage. You might not have fire insurance. If they cancel you, the mortgage company's going to foreclose, right? We all do that.
So talk a little bit about, because I'm sure people in the room would also love this, as you were writing the book and as you were building the process and you started engaging with some of your transactional, so say some of your clients that were sitting in annuities or direct mutual funds, what that first, like those first couple conversations were like, you know, and how you utilize the tools and having that conversation and sort of what that end client response was, because it was so different than what you were doing to date.
The biggest thing is that I liked about management is I could get a hold of my competitors, right? Back then when I was doing C-shares, I might have been able to use some Fidelity and American funds, but there weren't a lot of top names out there. So I tell the client, I'm really excited to be able to utilize the Vanguard funds. Now, even when I had C-share accounts, I'd throw in a couple of free Vanguard funds I didn't get paid on, just so I could have Vanguard in the portfolio, so some relative sees that there's no Vanguard, that's bad news, right? The Susie Ormans of the world and other people that'll shoot you down. So I was excited to go to that and letting them know that we have better access to lower cost funds and possibly better performing. I still, after 44 years, I don't know what a good fund is. I mean, you can tell me what a good fund was, but how do I know what it's going to do in the future, right? So we're here to construct things that can survive any time. And when the market, by the way, tanks, right? That's when we get to work, and I have not fun, but I call the clients, and we do portfolios that are based on the client's risk tolerance and everything. But I might call the clients, hey, guess what? What? You're down 8%. And they're going, what? Why is that bad or good? And I said, because the market's down 38 or 28%, and now our parachute system worked. Now you're going to pay for that. You're going to lose on long-term performance. But our clients, this is their nest egg, so they're willing to give up some of the growth for a more diversified, safer portfolio. So I told them, we want to get into this. I can manage it more efficiently. I can have lower cost funds. And the old C-shares cost 150 basis points. So if I pick some really low cost index and ETFs with my fee, it's not much different. So they're okay with that. I'm the one that had the fear factor of putting the paperwork down and telling them, I still don't do it. His mom will sit down with somebody and do the paperwork and tell them what the fee is. I don't want to hear about it. I'm afraid they won't think I'm worth it. But when you look at the whole process, and again, I'm saying, download this book, copy it, take everything you want, steal it, right? Whatever they use that word when you steal somebody else's stuff, plagiarize it, change it to your liking, and then I would also, this is another book I did, and I wrote this when I was in jail, working in the prison. There's a lot of photographs that I would put in throughout the book of you when you're a kid, if you have kids, your parents, your grandparents, any photos that go back as far as possible. Put photos in your book, hopefully a book like this, put photos in it, and pay some good money to have the cover done, and that gives you credibility. Just take all the notes that you've ever done. You would do things differently than us, better than us, write your book differently, but definitely do it, because here's what this book looked like. This is what it looked like before we sent it off to the editor and bought a cover on it and sent it to, compliance and then Amazon and all that kind of stuff. So I took this stuff and I take it down and get it copied and new of these at Kinko's or something, and well, that's my book. People, they don't care. And the other thing is, if you do publish a book, nobody's going to care other than your clients or the students in the class. Friends and relatives will kind of say, oh, yeah, that's fine, and put it aside. So I never got to be on Oprah. I thought I would, but it didn't happen. So.
And talk a little bit, both you and Nash, talk about, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the financial planning piece because you're thinking of that future forward, but talk a little bit about the results. So the outcomes that you saw from transitioning to the process, what happened to your AUM, how you saw that revenue. I love your humility, but I also think you're downplaying yourself because you've done an amazing job and you've grown your business significantly by, double-digit numbers. So talk about like how that started to show up. I mean, that first year is probably the toughest when you're making that transition, but speak a little bit about the construct of your assets under management now.
Okay. When I started this in 2010 or so, transferring over, the good news is we were still down in the stock market, so whatever I did looked good going forward, right, when the market moved back up. And so from that point forward, at that point I think I was earning about $280,000, $300,000 a year. That's a lot of money to me, and I didn't have a lot of staff back then. So then as time went by, I went to this conference, other advisors like this. That's what I want to replicate. Anything we can do to help you make more money or improve your practice, we're here to do it. Take all the information, anything you can take or copy from here is yours. And just send us a nice email. Hey, I'm a big producer now, bigger than us. But if we helped you, that's a legacy thing. And at my age, I'm 71 now. My son hopefully will be in the business a long time, and then I'll be promoting him. But now I'm at the age where I just want to help other people. I don't care. I don't need any more money on that. So my income was at about 280, 300 or so, and over the years, we're up now. I'm personally up to over 9, but some of that's the market improving, right? I would be a lot higher if I had everything in equities, but I still have a big percentage in short-term bonds, and maybe intermediate term, but we're still pretty cautious. So I'd have a much bigger book. I have friends of mine that, I have 105 million or so, something like that. That to me is a lot, but it's not a lot when you've seen your friends do 200, 300 and all that. But they're extroverts. I'm an introvert. They can read. I'm dyslexic. I just do my own thing, and I'd like to be big time, but I just do with what we've got. So it went from 300, today it's more like over 9. With Nash, we'll be hitting some good marks. But nothing happened quickly overnight. It was one little client at a time. One of our clients in the class, before Nash was teaching it, was 80-something. I don't need no financial advisor. Okay, fine. But now he's 90, and he comes in with his daughter saying, I'm starting to forget things. But he trusted us, okay? Or when he opens a class at 28 people in the audience, and then we've got 12 after 6 weeks, the first people trusted us. They just didn't want to sit and listen to it all the time. They come in later because now they know they have somebody they can trust, right? It's like people doing work on the car or contractors. I don't mind paying the fee. I just want to make sure I'm not being taken advantage of. Teach me what's a fair fee and I'll pay it. I just don't want to lose that. So from that level to that level, I've never been a big producer. I think I might be in the top 10%, but that's because of age and years, right? Hopefully Nash will grow much faster. But before we can grow, we have to manage the lower level clients that are taking a lot of time. And so we have 4 employees, Nash is one, and we can talk about how he works at some point.
Yeah, well, it's a good, you're hitting our segue actually beautifully, because I think we did want to talk about just, even when you say like you hope Nash doubles it, he is on that path and he's got a great story aside from teaching the classes. So let's segue into that and talk about like when Nash joined your practice and kind of what that looks like today, and as you think about all the educational incentives and things that you have for him.
Okay. The first things were when he was little, he didn't have an allowance. I don't want to embarrass you, but he didn't have an allowance. We live out in the country. I purposely bought an old beat-up house. We didn't have air conditioning. We had a potbelly stove, so he had to go out and collect wood with me, right, and make sure he could see that. He had little jobs around the house, and one of the jobs was we're rolling the magnet around. Some of you people know you roll the magnet around the property, pick up all the nails so you don't get a flat tire all the time. And so I say, okay, Nash, you're going to get $1 a nail. Ooh, he's like 7 years old. Well, this little bugger finds an old coffee can, rusted, with a pile of nails. That cost me a fortune. That was not so good, right? Then other projects that he did, we had a little rental property in a gold mining town called Grass Valley, and restaurant people were renting the building from me, but they let us use a little corner. So when I paid to be on the radio on Saturdays, I paid, right? We paid to be on the radio and do my little radio show. They had a pile of new books that authors would send to the radio show that they thought were going to just be reviewed and, oh, this is a great book. Well, they were throwing them away or taking them to somewhere and dumping them in a dumpster. So we said, we'll take those books. So we put a stand at this coffee shop that we were renting to somebody on Main Street. They let us put up all the books, and we had a little box with Nash's poor little sad face on it. These are my books I'm saving to go to college, which is true. And people would put money in the box. And when he was 7 or 8, we went up there on Christmas. He opens the box and $30, $40 piles out of this box. I mean, this is a little kid. So that was another business. So everything that we've done is business oriented. He was a hard money lender. He would lend me $20 and I had to pay him like $5 a week. Taught him to be on the dark side just in case you need to. So he did all those, and then coming into when he was 10, I had a 529 plan I put money into, and then we would buy some stocks before, this is 2007 rather. So he bought some well-known stocks. I told him you might consider this and that. And up 2008, they all crashed, right? So then we repositioned into some mutual funds. And then when I added to the 529, I think we did this with a Roth, didn't we?
Yeah, Roth IRA.
Roth IRA, okay. So I would add to it. So he got new contributions. So now I'm almost his client. He wants me to contribute to my Roth because every time it goes up and he calculates it, he gets 10% of the gain. So I have to give him cash at 10% of the gain. Half of that went to the 529, half of it went to what, Star Wars or something? Okay, so he would come home, if the market's up or down, I think in 7th and 8th grade, how's the market doing? Running the numbers, because he doesn't care about the market, I'm assuming, or the stocks, but he's going to get money out of this if they went up. And if we got lucky in the market and the portfolio went up, then he made some gain. And if I keep adding to it, he says, Dad, you need to add to this Roth, right? Well, he's thinking more gains he can make off bigger dollars. So I let him be a part of the action there, compliance. He wasn't licensed or anything, his family. That's how he made his money. And then when he was a little bit older, he did that for a while. Then right out of high school, then his buddies are saying, what are we going to do for money? You know, we're not going to worry about going to summer school. So his friends work at the mall, right, for a certain dollar amount. So I said, well, why don't I pay you almost half per hour, come into the office and study. And I picked out a course called Certified Funds Specialist. Has anybody heard of that? The Institute of Business and Finance has 5 courses that if you don't have certifications yet, you can take a multiple choice booklet over 3 months, take a test. If you pass it, you can use the credentials. But at the end of those 5 courses, if you have a bachelor's degree, you can apply to do the same thing again and get your master's degree online. I did that at age 60. I had dyslexia, I couldn't afford to go back to college early on, and I could do this online, stop at Starbucks, study. I got a master's degree at 60 years old. That changed my feelings of how I looked at myself. The little things matter. So he started doing that at so much an hour, almost twice as much as the friends. When he passes the test, if he does it late, he gets a small bonus. If he passes it early, he gets a big bonus. So he started off maybe getting a medium to low bonus, so much an hour, and as long as he shows up in the office while his friends are out there doing other things, passes it, gets a bonus. We put the certificate on the wall. We can't give him a card. He's not licensed yet. So he goes through 4 other classes and passes those. One of them, I don't know which one it was, but he finished right away, and I had to write a huge bonus check. And I'm complaining and, you know, for fun. Oh my gosh. And obviously that's got to feel good, right? Taking this money from Dad. And that way he could do that, and I got to see the certificate on the wall, so that was really cool. So we have all these certificates of what he's done. So as he went on, every single time he passed a credential, he got so much more an hour. And then he got another one, so much more an hour. And it's huge now because he's passed all these things. And now that he's got Chartered Financial Consultant, and I picked that because you could do 1 course at a time, take the little workshop, you know, make a plan, and then you get to be a Chartered Financial Consultant. I didn't want to put him through these CFP courses because if it was me, I would have failed CFP and wasted all that time. So at this point, we're in pretty good shape. She gave me a sign that says 10. What does that mean?
Oh, I don't know, just probably 10 minutes, that's okay.
Okay, good. What am I missing? So we did all those, Chartered Financial Consultant. He's taken CFP, passed it, but he's not a CFP. And then he'll be going back to college. The nice little story is he's never gone to college yet because we did all these courses. And now he's going to college online so he can qualify to be a CFP.
It's amazing because I think that one of the things that Bill also talked about was just, you know, what the onboarding, kind of like, I think you explained it as like a 36-month like onboarding.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, and hopefully Nash agrees. He's nodded his head before. Hopefully that's okay. As he got fully licensed a year or 2 ago, then I call that the introduction phase within the first 3 years. On the side, he's working on his own practice because he needs to do that on his own. I don't tell him what to do. I work for him. If he has clients there and he needs somebody to be there, I'll sit there, try to keep my mouth shut. I'll make copies for him, do whatever. I'm his employee. Then when he comes in with the main firm's people, he's on the clock and he gets paid so much an hour. So he's on his own with his clients. He gets a really good payout, but he has to do everything, paperwork, everything. I don't do it. My staff doesn't do it. Well, his mom will help him. But he has the incentive to build his own practice and the identity and not being told what to do. Then, if he works for, well, strategies, he gets X amount of hours if he needs some hours, plus we want him to learn, and he does come in and meet all the clients, because sooner or later he's going to transition. If I'm incapacitated, died, or he takes over, he needs to know that. But I don't want a 27-year-old, yelled at, where were you? You're supposed to be here 50 hours a week. I don't want that. And so he works for me, and then he works for us, and then I work for him. It's a phase-out process, but he has the identity to do his own thing, but then also work for the firm, and obviously, someday, hopefully, he'll run that firm.
It's such a thoughtful, I think it's so incredibly fun to listen to this story, because I think, again, it's like the incentives and the education, and major kudos for all the certifications and just what you're continuing to do. I think it's just like, as we think about succession, we think about that thoughtful approach and process as well, that we're being really thoughtful about how that looks. And, Bill on one of our calls said, I don't think I'll ever fully retire. And, like he'll still play a part, but that's really the legacy part too, is still staying involved and doing some really cool things. Nash, really quick before we go to questions, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the financial planning side of things. So, as you're teaching these classes and just making that shift, like future forward, like what are things as you're sort of learning and you're getting all this great education and all these great licenses, which for the record are not easy to get. So the fact that you can fast track them is majorly impressive. But, as you think future forward, what are some of the most important components to you?
So we actually do financial planning a little differently than most people will do, because a lot of people will do super in-depth, big, long, very specific financial plans, defined outcome sort of things, where it's like, we're trying to get to this end goal here. We operate much more as like a health check. It's more like we try to simplify things down, because that's just kind of our target audience. Because they're not these kind of people that need these super complex plans, and I need to know exactly this account type and all these different things, and this is going to be my most optimal. That's just not the kind of person that we serve. The kind of person that we serve is just somebody who's been working for 30 to 40 years and now doesn't really know what to do with their 401k. That's the main kind of person that we serve. So that kind of person, generally, what they need, they just need to know that they're doing okay. They need to know that everything is all right and protected, and that there's no big, just glaring red flags. So we kind of do it as more of just a health check. Just, can you show me, how much of your assets are covered in the event of a big liability? Are you good? Is there enough coverage? Do you need umbrella? Just simple stuff. Are we actually getting you to a point where your portfolio is big enough or has the right risk tolerance? Super simple things. We're just making sure that that's happening, that their assets are passing them with estate planning, but just on such a basic level that the client understands. Because, at the end of it, it's up to them to do anyway. Yeah. So if we can break it down in a way that is simple, gets the job done, it's better for them to do something than to spend forever trying to figure out how to do the perfect thing. Because if they never end up doing it, that's 0% effective. So if I can just get them to do the small stuff and get that out of the way, we can have the more advanced conversations later. So I think that's kind of what has been good for us, is to break it down to such a simple level so that they're totally on board and they understand everything that they need to do and why, and so that all those bases are covered.
And that's just, I love that, because breaking it down to simplicity, but I also love it because time and energy are our most valuable assets, right? And so it's also helping you in spending the right time on the things. If you go more in depth, before you just go in depth right out of the gate, you're really it's that profiling process, and that's having that really thoughtful conversation with them. I do want to open it up to any Q&A. One of the things I will also stress again, please visit the website. Everything, again, that you can use is available. You can print things out. There's a PDF copy of the book, which is great. But before we close out, we'd love to see if there's any questions for Bill or Nash.
Yeah. The Institute of Business and Finance, IBF, CFS. For some reason, they're recognized on that one certification because it looks like CFP. Right? Do look at this stuff, though. In the book, it has, and on the website, There's a listing of how to select mutual funds and ETFs, what little parameters you want to look for. Now, you may already know this, so you print it out and use it in your workshops, right? And then what parameters to do for ETFs and mutual funds, and then how to do. We've got a diagnostic of reviewing a portfolio. You can have a client who has a portfolio. You bring them in, put them on Morningstar workstation. You can fill out this form, and you can tell, and it says beta below 1 is good, right? And theirs is 1.25. Ooh, alarm, alarm, alarm. So there's some workshops in here, workbooks that you can utilize. But please, plagiarize everything.
I love it. What else? Yes?
The classes that you teach, did you create the content, or is it one of these?
So just so everybody can hear in the back, asking more about just the classes and the content creation from Nash.
So this is stuff that we created. We didn't purchase this from anywhere. This is stuff that he created at the beginning over the last decade or so, and then I've come in and sort of, added my own stuff to it. But added a lot of basically just what I've learned from Charter Financial Consulting. It's really just repurposing a lot of that information and just putting it into a way that is digestible. But yes, we created it.
We had, at the end of the book, there are 7 pages of an outline of the whole book that you can use in a workshop. I used to look to do slides in a workshop, but they're all about couples on the beach and buy annuities and do all this wonderful stuff, right? And that drove me nuts. I want to do something that like a CPA would do. So there's 7 pages at the back of the book, and again, you can download this and copy it or buy one for $10, but we're not selling them. But download that information and you can use that. If the power goes out and all of a sudden we have no slides, we just flip to the back of the book and go on the outline and talk all about what is alpha, beta, and everything in this stuff. Go deep, deep, deep. Burn these people out. They might have, their eyes are rolling thinking, man, this is too hard. Because if you went in to have a serious operation, why do they send the surgeon in to talk to you? That's to make you feel comfortable that she knows what she's doing, right? And it's way over your head that she knows what she's doing, right? Or you walk in to get on the airplane, you look in the cockpit. What do I know about a cockpit? But I got to look in there to make sure it's okay. The pilot's not laying on the ground passed out. So I would go as deep as you can, as technical as you can, and go over their heads if you have to, but they'll come back with their tail between their legs because they don't want to do it. Nash manages my portfolios. I don't want to do all that crap again. I'll tell him things I'd like to know about the portfolios or tell him about Mrs. Jones, but it's a lot of work. When you really go through the financial planning checklist, the portfolio construction, then you got to follow up on daily. You got to check on what's happening in the news with interest rates. Weekly, you got to check on podcasts and see what's going on with mutual funds and ETFs. Monthly, he shops for new ETFs that can replace old mutual funds, right? Quarterly, he lines up all the funds to make sure what's the most expensive one, can we replace it with last month's search, and maybe some that are not doing so good or dropped in their rankings or something. He'll do that on a quarterly basis. Then biannually, we'll look at which funds are up too much. Who's too much? Utilities, 50%. We were putting people into utilities of sector 2 years ago. Now we're taking a fourth out. We went to Vanguard's real estate fund because it was down 16%. Now it's up 20%. So not to say that you can pick them, but biannually you want to get rid of the ones that have gone too far if they're sector funds. Then back to the yearly one, you're doing the whole review on the phone or in person. And by the way, how's this? How's your income? How do you feel? Okay, how old's your house? It's old. Get it, appraised or look at it for it's safe. And I'll go all the way down to, I want you to have 5 panic alarms in the house. These are old people that their spouses died. All these little things, not financial planning related, but they're personally related, that nobody tells them to look at. Look at their health. Go to this website. You've got a chance to live like a professional athlete now. And the biggest reason that I'm excited about Nash taking over a lot of this stuff is I'm back in the gym. Not the gym working out, the gymnastics gym. I'm bouncing on trampolines. I can't wait to train a little bit further because I'm all ready for my double front with a half out.
I love it. God bless. Because if I got on one of those, I think every bone in my body would probably shatter. It's an amazing thing, especially at that. Thank you so much. I think we're being closed out. Thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate you.